Welcome to Betrayal Trauma Recovery, BTR.org. I'm Anne. We've opened up some new group session times that work for Australians and also for women in the UK. Go to btr.org/group to see if the group sessions will work for you. I'm sure you remember what it was like when you were searching for help, maybe for your husband, hoping to find the right program or therapist. That's why I started podcasting, because I supported my husband through 7 years of pornography addiction recovery, and not one therapist during that time told me I was experiencing emotional and psychological abuse and sexual coercion. I didn't want any other woman on the planet to be in the dark. If you're like the majority of my listeners, you're experiencing the type of abuse that's invisible and difficult to wrap your head around. Your husband is lying to you, using porn or having affairs or some other type of emotional and psychological abuse, and you're getting the same bad advice about how to improve communication or your relationship. If you need support from women who totally understand, our coaches can help you sort through this. We'd love to see you in a group session today. If this podcast is helpful to you and you wish you'd found it sooner, one simple anonymous way to help spread the word is to click follow or subscribe on the Betrayal Trauma Recovery podcast. Every 5-star rating helps make this podcast more visible and will help save other women from getting the wrong kind of help, like a couple program that will make this type of abuse worse. Your support means I can continue sharing this life-changing information with women throughout the world for free. Scroll to the bottom of any page on btr.org and click on Support the Podcast. Thank you. I couldn't do this without you. A member of our community is on today's episode. We're going to call her Jenna. She's been on the podcast before, and today she's going to tell her story. Welcome, Jenna.
I discovered my husband's addiction shortly after we were married, and I was obviously devastated and completely traumatized. He had withheld things from me and lied to me, and that created distrust in our relationship and caused me to question everything that he had ever told me, that I had ever experienced with him. And so I just, from the beginning, could not stop looking through his computer and through his phone and really any device or anything that I could verify or find information on. I would search into the late hours of the night and into the morning. That was just a response to my trauma. And I've learned since then that it's not useful. It has not helped me. And it really only harmed me and caused me further pain.
I want to contrast your story with the story of many women that I've spoken with who have said, I had this impression that I needed to check his phone and I checked it and I realized he was having an affair. Or I had this impression that I needed to look at his computer and I looked at the computer and I saw this.
Yeah.
Women really can benefit from a safety-seeking behavior.
Right.
So today I want to cover why we call this safety-seeking behaviors.
Right.
At BTR, we believe that women resist abuse. They resist it from the very first second they experience it. They might not know they're experiencing it, and they might not know that what they're doing is resisting it, but it is an effort to get to safety. And at BTR, whatever you do to get to safety is healthy. And we've also found that some safety-seeking or some types of resistance are more effective than others. So we're going to talk about that today. Because some addiction recovery therapists or other therapists or support groups will try to label this type of behavior as acting out or that you're codependent and that you trying to find the truth is unhealthy, which is just more gaslighting.
Yes, for me, looking through his computer and phone, it was the only tool I had at the time. I didn't have any recovery resources, and I was just trying my hardest to, like you were saying, establish safety with the little amount of knowledge that I had, and that was the only thing I knew how to do, but they did not provide me with the safety that I was desperately seeking. For me, there were 3 reasons searching my husband's computer was not helpful. Number 1, it didn't solve the problem. Number 2, it made me feel absolutely crazy and I lost trust in my own intuition and my own self. And number 3, it kept the focus on him and prevented me from creating and establishing safety for myself.
So let's talk about that first reason for you. Why did it not solve the problem?
It did not solve the problem because even if I found evidence of something and confronted him about it, he would deny it and gaslight me. That was not motivation for him to change. It would just be me showing him these things, or, I couldn't find anything. And then because I was looking for cold, hard evidence to convince him and explain to him and show him the reasons why he needs to get help and to change, instead of looking to myself and saying, what do I need to feel safe? I wasn't listening to my own intuition.
I can see why this wouldn't solve the problem, because it's kind of like talking to a 2-year-old.
Yes.
Okay, please don't throw the food on the floor. And they do not say to you, oh, you are right. I was throwing the food on the floor. That is inappropriate. I am so sorry. I will never do that again.
Exactly.
2-year-olds don't say that.
Mm-hmm.
The way that they react is not in a reasonable, mature fashion.
Right.
Even when you presented him with evidence, it's not like he said, oh, wow, here's the evidence. Facts are facts. Now I will stop lying.
Right. It's not logical. You can't reason with addict mode.
Because of that probably is exactly why you have the second reason, which is you started to feel crazy.
Yes. For a year and a half, I searched my husband's phone and computer, and I tracked him on his devices, trying to find something because my gut kept telling me something is off. I just continually had this feeling of something is not right. He's not telling me the full truth about something. I could not shake this feeling. And so I would confront him and say, hey, I have this feeling that something is off and you're withholding information from me. And he would say, no, everything's fine. I would just think, okay, but why am I having this feeling? So instead of trusting myself and making boundaries for safety, I would search everything. 99% of the time, I found nothing. That just made me feel crazy because I had this conflicting feeling with the lack of evidence that I was not finding on the computer or on whatever device. It was a very confusing and crazy feeling to look for something that you feel like should be there and it's not.
At the time, I assume that his behaviors were emotionally unsafe.
Correct, they were.
So were you thinking, okay, there's got to be a reason for why his behaviors are emotionally unsafe? Did you even have words for that at the time?
I would have these flags come up in my mind saying like, I don't feel like he should be doing this or saying this or acting in this way or treating me this way. That's when I would confront him. The evidence that I was ignoring at the time was the emotional abuse and the irresponsible behaviors. I don't think I would have at the time labeled it as emotional abuse because I was so early in my healing process that I was just barely learning about boundaries. I knew it was not right, but I just made excuses and I bargained and tried to rationalize it and make sense of it. But yes, it was emotional abuse that I'm not sure I was completely aware of at the time.
Absolutely. That's why I created the Living Free workshop so women can discover what is actually going on, know his true character, and then learn how to set like effective boundaries that don't require his cooperation. Like you can protect yourself without him needing to do anything. To get more information about that, go to btr.org/livingfree. That takes us to your reason number 3. You were searching his phone and computer in your effort to resist abuse. It actually kept you from doing things that would establish your safety, like some of the strategies that we teach in the Living Free workshop.
Yes. When I was obsessed with looking through his history and his computer and trying to find evidence, I spent so much emotional energy on that I was neglecting myself and not doing the things that would provide real lasting safety for myself.
Yeah, I think it's a really common stage that all victims go through. Plus, we're given the wrong information by therapists. The therapists tell us that in order to set a boundary, we need to say to our husband out loud, if you do this, then I'll do this. So, I mean, before I even got married, I told my ex, if you look at porn, I will divorce you. That was my quote unquote boundary. But then I married him and he did look at porn and then I didn't want to divorce him. So what was I supposed to do? it was very confusing. And that way of quote unquote setting boundaries didn't help me to be safe at all. In the case of searching for things on their phone and their computer, many women say their boundary is that they have access to his phone or his computer. In your case, you're saying that didn't help you get to safety because you still felt really uneasy, and it didn't stop him from harming you. In the Living Free workshop, women learn what a boundary really is. It's something that actually protects you and something you do without talking to him at all.
Yes. As I started to learn about boundaries and what that really meant and what a healthy boundary was, I just played around with it a little bit. I didn't know how to implement a healthy boundary completely. So I would try, and I had this little glimpse of feeling safe, like, and empowered. I felt like, oh, maybe this is what safety is, and maybe I don't need to search these things. And so I would start to make some boundaries, and I would break my own boundaries. And over time, as I began to create healthy boundaries consistently, I began to experience real safety. I could feel the difference. And when I look back, I don't know how I made it through that time of chaos and dysfunction. The moment when I created firm, healthy boundaries and I felt that peace and that assurance and that safety, it was just a turning point for me and for my recovery. The first boundary I remember setting and holding that provided safety for me was actually not sleeping in the bed with him because I did not feel safe. Not because he was looking at porn and I could prove it, but just because he was not emotionally safe for me. And that was enough for me to not sleep in the bed with him. I started to focus on, what do I need to feel safe? Part of that for me was having a husband who would be completely honest with me. I did find out that he had lied to me about something. I knew at that moment that I needed to, and I wanted to hold the boundary, and I did, and I asked him to move out. And that created the most safety that I had felt during our marriage, was asking him to move out and having my home be a safe haven for me. I can say that with confidence. Yeah.
When I started doing that, I could feel it too.
Yeah.
For me, I never set a boundary before the judge set the boundary for me and the police.
Right.
It was a God-given boundary of no contact when he was arrested, and the judge said, you have a no contact boundary. And I could have broken it, but I was like, whoa, this is what I need to do. And I felt safe for the first time. It was amazing. Just that peace that came, that I could go home and I could breathe, having that safe space. The key to setting boundaries is safety. How can I feel safe? Like I teach in the Living Free workshop, you don't have to tell the person what your boundary is. You don't have to decide your boundary beforehand, because you can't anticipate all the things he's going to do. You don't know, for example, here's a metaphor, that he's going to throw a shoe at you. So you couldn't beforehand say, if you throw a shoe at me, I will throw your shoe in the garbage. Instead, you can respond when he harms you. And without saying a word to him, think to yourself, I didn't realize he would use shoes as weapons, so I'm going to take all the shoes in the house and give them to Goodwill. You don't have to say a word to him about it. You don't have to get his permission. You don't need his cooperation. And then no more shoes will be in the house, so he'll never be able to throw a shoe at you again. I mean, that's a metaphor, but I love Living Free because it's about what you need to feel safe, and you can make the best decisions for you and actually take action to protect yourself.
Absolutely. I didn't even understand the concept of boundaries for so long that I needed someone to guide me and to show me what a healthy boundary looked like, because there's no way I would have learned to do that on my own. I mean, I was lost completely in the beginning. So I needed to see examples of boundaries. I needed to see examples of women making and holding boundaries. I needed someone to listen to me talk through boundaries and allow me to contemplate on whether or not they were healthy boundaries that provided safety.
Exactly. How can we move toward actual safety rather than spinning our wheels trying to get safety but not getting anywhere, right? For our listeners who are right now obsessively checking their husbands' phones and computers, what advice would you have for them?
In my experience, searching through my husband's devices and tracking where he is and constantly being on alert never brought me real safety and stabilization in my life. The only thing that created stability for me was learning about boundaries, what they look like and what they don't look like, and then interacting with other women who are in similar situations, but maybe are a few steps ahead of me. You really helped me to begin creating safety for myself instead of searching continually through my husband's computer.
Well, I'm so glad. The Living Free strategies are incredible, especially the parts about setting healthy boundaries. It also includes how to determine your husband's true character, thought strategies, communication strategies, everything a woman needs to know when she has that gut feeling that something's wrong is in the Living Free workshop. So again, to learn more, go to btr.org/livingfree. If this podcast is helpful to you, please help us reach other women by following or subscribing and giving us a 5-star rating. Thank you for helping other women find us. If you've already purchased a copy of my book, Trauma Mama, Husband Drama, please circle back and give it a 5-star rating. A lot of women are searching for books about betrayal trauma on Amazon, and rating Trauma Mama will help them find this podcast, which is free to everyone. Your donations keep this podcast going. Go to our website, btr.org, scroll to the bottom, click on Support the BTR Podcast. And until next week, stay safe out there.